Alright, welcome everyone to the explanation video for this smallest 5x5 non-seamless cave door by me. So before I head on to any explanation, thank you for 222 subscribers. I wouldn't be here without you. And to celebrate this milestone, I've decided to make a 2-video series for you guys, and is on the 5x5 cave door that I'm going to explain later on. So the reason for choosing the 5x5 cave door as the topic for my 222 subscriber special is because, well, I make a lot of world records myself, Western world records, and I think it would be most suitable to represent myself with one of uh, the doors that I am better off. And one of my first doors to be classified as world records is actually my cave door series, and I think um, this 5x5 non-seamless cave door would best represent my ability to make world records, and as well the spirit itself, the initial spirit. So yeah, today I'm going to explain to you about this door, and without further ado, let's get started. And before I show you any explanation, actually, in case you haven't watched the tutorial, so here's the door working. And the opening will be like this. And you can already see that the layout itself is based on like a squared layout. So it's 9 by 9 by 4, and so yeah, it's a square 9 by 9. And if you were to compare to the previous one, which has a footprint of 10 by 9, this is made previously by Exorted, Nakai, Amajo 009, and Newcomer MC. And I'm sorry for the lag, but anyways, here's the opening. So you can see the door itself is very clean and sync, and it's not really the topic of this video, but just to show you. So this has a density of 91.92%, and after calculation, there are 21 air blocks in this door. This is the previous record, and the current record has a density of I forgot, 95.96%. I remember. If it's not, then you can check out the tutorial video. But what I can be sure is that there are only 9 air blocks in the door itself, so it's quite amazing. Uh, so yeah, but anyways, so this is just to tell you how amazing, and yeah, how amazing this door this is. It is. But anyways, so onto the layout, and I've said it before, it is more of a square base layout because I need to shave a layer from the top, like from that door, because that door itself has an extra layer at the top. So how do you shave a layer? Well, basically you make all the doubles at the top, the previous door, into folded doubles. And this is the layout itself. It is quite complex, and you probably won't understand it unless I basically made it into parts such that you will understand it. And that's what I'm going to do next. So yeah. Now on to the analyzing of the door. You can see that I've made all the door blocks into different colors. So the red wool one is the triple, and the yellow ones are the doubles, and the lime ones are the singles, and the light blue ones are also singles, but they are flushed blocks, which means you need to have a piston at the back to retract it and then pull it away. So this is basically the simple analyzing. So what can we see from this here? The answer is, well, we only, or I should say, I'm more concerned of the doubles actually, because I would later explain why the triple itself isn't that much of an issue, but the doubles are. So you can see there are 8 blocks for the doubles, and there are obviously 4 sides for the door. So that means on average you need to handle 2 folded doubles on each side, including top and bottom, left side and right side. So that is basically the case. And you might be wondering, uh, if necessary, why don't you fit three folded doubles on one side or on top or on the bottom? And that is because of the balancing, obviously. Because if you were to give too much pressure on one side, you basically end up with a layout that is almost impossible to work. And it's also very hard to wire. And you probably don't have the sufficient powering layout for the door to even work. So that's why maintaining two folded doubles on each side is very important. And that is going to also be the principle for the creation of the layout. And we should head on to the obvious part first. So this is the most logical piston layout placement before even concerning all the doubles. So right, right here you will see all the line blocks are basically just singles. Like previously you can see here, they're just singles. You won't really want to do a double here then retract it to the top for this block. And same for here, you won't want to do a double physics extender and retract it to the bottom. That's not viable, literally. So what you want is to basically retract all the singles in the easiest way possible. So you can see 3 pistons here, 3 line blocks, 3 pistons here, 3 line blocks, and so on and so on. And the triple itself is also actually determined here already, and it's just put on one side. I will also tell you later why the triple is built like that, and yeah. But right now, all you need to know is the triple has to be on either the left or the right side, and the layout itself is like this. So yeah, this is all you need to know for now. And then we came to this called left side doubles layout assumption. So this is very related to the triple circuit itself, because later on there would be a solid block here with a redstone dust on top, meaning that, or I should really just grab a quartz block myself. Hang on. There you go. And then dust here. Oh, actually, never mind. Okay, this. Okay, so later on in the triple circuit, you will see this wiring here. So what concerns me is that if I were to place any pistons here, it would definitely be affected by the triple circuit. So there are basically some approaches to this. You can avoid it or you can use it at your advantage. And I chose to avoid it actually, because I assume that it is not viable to use this block as an advantage for this folded double, because it will create quite a few issues. And later on, you will also see some smart wiring for the folded doubles itself. So right now, all you need to know is that in my mind, it isn't viable for me to do this basically, and that's why I chose with this layout. Uh, this folded double, this here is going to be the double piston extender, basically, and you also might notice that I chose this block and put the piston right here. And first of all, why choosing this block? Why don't you choose this block to be pulled by the left side? The reason is quite simple. It's because of this flush piston right here. If I, for example, I were to do this, then you can see that the line block itself is already occupying this space, meaning that I cannot do like a folded double like this, which means all I can do for here is to do this. And right here, you can already see a problem. You need to power this piston while being able to retract this piston. And if you were to have a folded double like this, you basically eliminate a lot of chances to do that. You can obviously do some butt powerings here, but it won't be viable either. You literally waste a lot of circuitry and a lot of space just to do this. So, in my mind, it isn't working that well. So I chose with this. So you can see quite concentrated here, and don't worry, there will be a solution to this, obviously. So this is called the left side doubles layout assumption, because it's just an assumption, it's just my opinion, it's just my way of thinking how the door will work best. So I call this an assumption, not really a logical thinking. But you can also see that the assumption itself also have some logical ideas, but it's still an assumption. So anyways, so after explaining the left side, it is quite easy to infer from the left side and to complete the remaining layout. And we shall head on to this part. So this is called the top doubles layout logical placement, and you can see that it's also taking away two double blocks, basically two yellow blocks, and then pull them into top. So originally they'll be here, they'll be here, and it's quite reasonable to do that, obviously, because the left side already does these two. And if you take out the easy one, the top to do these two, and then the right to do these two, and then the bottom to do these two. It's quite simple. I think it should be quite easy to understand. So, yes, as we need to do this block, it basically means that I can only place the folded double here, and then to have a block here. Also, by the way, if you didn't realize in this here, the logical piston placement, I already have these pistons right here. This piston, and then the top one, and then here. And it's quite easy to understand as well, because this, if you were to pull, for example, this block from the top, you literally need to do a triple extender. Whereas if you do it from the right side, you only need to pull two. So obviously you want to choose that from the right side. So the thing is, you want to choose the direction where you can pull the block with the least amount, and that's the principle basically. So yeah, you can see some piston layout have already been pre-decided, but just to add on from the left side doubles assumption, and yeah, and you come up with this, or I come up with this. So yeah, this folded double, and this here, this folded double is placed here. The reason why I place it is also exactly the same. If I were to place my folded double here, then you would basically block the pulling of this flush piston. And even if you are successfully, you can pull it successfully, the powering layout wouldn't be as viable. So you want to pull it from the other side. You want to basically leave one side to pull, one side to power, and that would be the most optimal. So this is why I decided on this layout. And anyways, so now head on to the right side doubles layout logical placement, and it's exactly the same thing. I've already said before, this piston here has to be pulled from one side here, and also being able to power from the other side. So actually both sides are basically occupied already. This is what I've already know. So this forward double has to be placed here. And yeah, this is also quite logical, because this is already occupying the space. You can only place this folded double here. And on to the last part, for the doubles. The bottom doubles layout logical placement. And so this is the layout that I used, and I cannot say that this is the only solution to this, but this is the way that I've decided to make it work. So you can obviously like have this here, but to me this isn't really that good. I'd rather to work it with this actually, and I'll also explain it next. But you can have this, for example. This is also one possible way of having it work. And you can also have this to make it work, but I've chosen not to. Oh, actually, for this case, it isn't even possible, because if you were to see here, you basically use this space to block out this piston powering, and that doesn't work. So the only alternative here is to just have this here, but in my mind it isn't really that viable, so I've gone with this design instead. Yeah. So you can see we already resolved all the doubles, and now it's on to the singles, the light blue blocks actually, and these pistons. So now we head on to the flush block layout logical placement, and you can see I basically retracted this block to the left, and why doing so is related to the top, because the top input would be here. I will explain that later. And having this observer is quite important. So, yep, I have this. And I also placed this flush piston here. And I'll also explain that later. Like, why? Because the flush blocks are usually, like the placement of the flush blocks and the flush pistons are usually related to the powering layout itself. So, when you create these doors, you have in a sense that you need to create some powering layout, some circuits, some small circuits that would work with the layout, and that limits your choice of placing your piston layout basically. And at that time, so basically at that time you also would decide where to place your flush pistons. You don't decide right away, you decide at the last when you start to place the powering layouts. And yeah, so for here I place it here instead, and the reason why is because more powering layouts. This is more complicated, I cannot really explain it right here, but I can say that this is more space efficient for these two, because later there will be a circuit here that literally fits in perfectly. So for this one, it's actually quite obvious. The reason why I don't place it here is because you literally blocked out the powering for this piston, and so I have to place it here. And this piston itself is already placed, and the reason why is because you basically blocked it out from here. I already blocked it out from the bottom, so you can see why I already retracted this piston already. Same as this one actually, because this one also blocked this out. Or actually no, because of the left side. The left side blocked this out. So this piston is retracted here. I don't even need to think about it because this is the only way to do it. So anyways, back to the topic. So this block itself, I already explained it, and this block itself would be retracted downwards instead of the side, because if you were to have the side like this, it works, but you also need an observer here, which would be quite hard to control because these two are connected now, and you have a big chance that you are unable to make this to work with this simultaneously. So having this is better, basically. So now for the powering layouts. And as I have mentioned, the input is right here. Why is it set right here already? Like, this is one of the first things that I do in this door. The reason is very simple. You literally block yourself out. And how do you even see it? You can see these are the piston layout, like the pistons, and you literally block yourself out. You literally have no other better way than to power it literally dead center. Because if you were to power from other places, you waste a lot of space just to power these three. Then why don't you just resolve all three by just having the inputs here? So this is the solution. And later on, you would realize an issue where I have to turn it into a sort of a button input, and that will be resolved at the right side, the harder side actually. But yes, we'll talk about that later. And since I already set the inputs here, and I already said it's important to have this observer, this means that this piston and the block has to be here, because having inputs that can come out from here is also quite important, which will be used in one of the later circuits. It isn't connected to much stuff, but it does serve its purpose. But anyways, so since we basically blocked ourselves out with these pistons, you might still query why I block myself out like this, and instead of just having it like this. And the reason is actually this conjunction. This piston and this piston conjunction with this observer. This is very annoying. And the way to make it work is to have this be off from here, so that this is independent from this here. And this is the way that I made it work. It's quite hard to explain, but basically you need to have some quick pulsing here in order to offset these two first. So the idea behind is you do 2 quick pulses here, and this will do 3. And if you do this 3, this will do 4, which basically both are odd numbers. So the idea is you need to have both pistons to be odd number powered. And this is very annoying. So you cannot have in conjunction with these. And that's why I've already separated it. And that's basically the reason why. So if we see that we already blocked ourselves, then the only logical placement for this door is to have this observer here. This is the only way I can get out to the right side. So that's it. And the laser circuits would be based on these powering layouts as well. So other powering layouts that we need to do right now is this. For example, you need to power this piston right here. So this is basically one, and this also powers this flush piston perfectly, which is quite nice. And you also see why I have to place this piston here already, because one, you can cope with the right side, and two, if you place it really right here, then you literally have to do something like this. Not really recommended. It's very hard to do. But yeah, having this, very easy. Also, other things, observer, hopper, and then observer powers this piston, because you literally have no other way to do that. So this is the most optimal way. You can see this piston is already blocked out, so the only way to do that is this observer, as I've said it before. And you see some interesting stuff here. This is already decided even before actually placing this input. The reason why is because of a very useful triple circuit that I will introduce later. And this is basically the initials of it. I'll explain that later. But just to let you know, this is already set. And other things that you might want to consider is, first off, how to power this piston. Well, we obviously need an observer resolved. Secondly, how do you power these two pistons right here? The answer is by powering through the door block, you power these two pistons. Easy peasy. But this also means that this door block has to be solid. Otherwise, it cannot power this piston, even though it can power this. So, yep, that's basically it. And this observer, obviously, powering this, because we don't want to really rely on this. This isn't reliable. And the most interesting part is the bottom. So this is quite similar to this case here. You want to power this piston, yeah, basically. And here, things get very interesting. So there's no way to power this piston except for this redstone dust, which is why you need an observer facing upwards. And if we were to consider these two pistons have to power odd number of times, So it's best to just link them up, and that's why I need to have this node block here. So it's quite unfortunate that this store has to be worked in, has to be built in 1.13 plus, but it is quite essential, basically. And this also means that this observer here is already necessary. You might notice that this block is in full because this is actually will be powered through the dust, and that creates some unexpected stuff that happens while I make the door, while I was making the door, and that actually really helps with the door itself. And it is that it powers this piston here. Despite you, despite think, despite this powering layout, this actually doesn't even control this here because the flow of the door is from top to the right, and then it will already stop, and then from the right to the left, and then from the left to the bottom. So it will go from the bottom left to the bottom right. So this will always go first, and you cannot have this to power here, and that's why this never controls this double, and instead it's actually controlled by powering through this door block. So I'll explain that later. Obviously, you can do with other solutions like this, but it just so happens that this is one of the easiest ways that I can find having this for the double work. So that's why I went with this. So this is also the reason why you don't see any of this stuff happening. Is because I found this circuit accidentally during the making of the door. So I hope that explains how I plan and create the layout, because planning and creating layout is often one of the hardest parts. People do miss a lot of opportunities when they decide on the layout, because they might see a layout, oh, it's too hard, and then they don't want to do it. But actually, if you plan it more carefully, then you might realize there's still some potential chances that you can make this work. It may be just that your layout isn't perfect, or your layout isn't made to be workable. Creating layout requires that layout to be workable, not only that it is possible. So yeah, that is the layout part explained. Honestly, it's one of the hardest parts, so I hope you understand it. If you don't, you can maybe rewatch it again, see if you can understand it more. But anyways, I'll move on from that and go on to the explanation of the actual circuitry. So it will be best for me to explain the circuit itself by the flow itself, and I already introduced it. The flow would be the right, or from the top to the top right, and then the top right will go to the bottom right, and then it will stop there, and then the top right would go back to the top left, and then the top left would go to the left and then go under it and then go to the bottom. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, well, you can see it through the explanation yourself. So onto the first circuit. I'm going to divide the circuits into very small parts, so I hope you can understand more from it. But anyways, so this is directly from the input. You can see that it powers through this observer and then powers this dropper, and then powers this piston. And then from here, you can see immediately why this observer is being used. It goes to a 40 repeater, and then observer, and then goes to this piston, and then retracts and extends this observer. Keep in mind that this 40 is very important. It has to be 40. It cannot be 3 tick. Basically has the same property as a lamp. If you have a 3 tick, then this piston also retracts and extends the observer, but it just won't power these two pistons correctly. And I need to power these two pistons. So 4 tick is necessary. And you can see right at first, I already blocked out the way of powering this piston. And if you can recognize, this is a powering layout from there to here. I'm using this observer to power this piston, and you should already have a sense that I will also reuse this observer to power this piston once again, because I literally blocked it right at the start. And if you were to notice, this piston in normal circumstances should power twice, unless I do some ABA stuff, which I don't. So this piston has to power twice, and which means that this observer has to arrive here twice. And this is one of the smarter parts of the circuit, which I will explain later. But anyways, just to let you know that for now, it's like this. So the working principle is very simple. This goes down, and then this goes down. These three automatically goes down. This will go down due to the powering this piston from this observer through this dropper. So yeah, like this. And that's actually the first part explained. And next we are going to go on to this part. So keep in mind that the right side and the top are the hardest parts of the door. So if you can understand these two parts, then congratulations, you have basically understand the hardest part of the door. The left side and the bottom are quite simple, and you can already see it via these supplementary circuits here. They are useful for explanation later, and you can see on the left side there aren't even any, which means it's very simple. You can even understand it just from the separation of the circuits. So yeah. So remember when I said before that I need to transform it to a button input in order to facilitate for the triple circuit? Well, I do that at the right side, right at the start. So you might think that sounds very awkward. You yourself have to do the inputs right here, but then you immediately have to turn it to a button input. Yes, it works like that. And because these three pistons, if not being powered by this lever input, otherwise it'll be very hard to power them. But at the same time, I also need a button input. This is very annoying. And I know it sounds awkward, but I just have to deal with it. And so I did. So the approach of creating a button input for the rest of the door, the standard way is to do a latch, arsenal latch, which is what I did. So this is basically it. If you don't understand it, don't worry. I have this for you. So basically, you don't even need to worry about this already. So this goes to here, it goes to here, forward tick, powers this dropper. And the item is here, by the way. So, and then this item will go to here. And this comparison powers through this dust. There's a barrier here. I just want to let you know that there's a forcing under it. So this dust powers these two pistons directly. And then this vortex goes into this dust, goes to this hopper, observer, dust, goes back, observer, 3-tick repeater. This 3-tick is special. There's a reason behind. It's to cope with the delay for the triple circuit. And then it goes back to the observer, and then goes to this dropper, and then the item will go from here back to here. So I hope you know what would happen. If you don't know, you're probably confused because of some drop-off logic, and I can explain that through here. It's basically the same circuit, but I'll explain it anyways. So you see this vortex, or this dropper, and then this dropper. What you need to know is that for any repeated input instead of dust, that's locational, it would power this dropper first, then this dropper. So it will power this dropper first, which has absolutely nothing, and then power this dropper. This dropper has an item, so it will push this item from here to here. after the comparator powers, and then this vortex powers, and then go through all of this stuff, and then this reset goes back to this observer. This is an observer, so it's also a repeat input. So what will happen is this dropper powers, this would not have the item already. And then it will power this, then power this. There will be an item here. So it returns the item from this dropper back to here, which is basically the idea of the latch. And in case if you're wondering, hey, this would turn off, and this would turn off, and then this will pulse again, and then this will freeze, and then pulse again. Or actually even pulses 4 times, because retake. So there are 2 times when this turns on and 2 times when this turns off. Would that matter? No. Because the item will already be here. This observer will push the item from here to here, but at the same time, it will also push the item from here back to here instantly. So there's no worrying about this. So I hope you get how this latch works. You can see the lamp turns on and the lamp turns off. So yep. This also pulses twice, if you can see it. 1, 2. So yep, this is how it works. And in conjunction with the door itself, or the top, basically, you see this. Wow, it works quite like a lot. Like quite a few stuff actually already works. These 3 line blocks, they already work. This piston, the flush piston, goes down, and you can see this does goes to this here and then powers these 2. They basically create a long pulse, and then this dropper with an observer will power it, and then this will retract, and then although this will also power it, the piston is no longer in the place, so this only pulses once. So this flush block works. This block works because if you were to remember, this observer powers this piston, it pushes this block down already, and then this here would push this piston, go to here. This observer, you might think that this is locational, but it's not because of racing condition. It will always power the bottom one first. So you push this block to here, and then when this retracts, and this dust will power this piston. So this already works. The retraction also works. What does work as well is this, but it isn't that simple as you think. Because remember this piston, I have to power this another time. And currently this is at the wrong state. This should be retracted. I haven't even added the refiring of this yet. So this folded double here, although it looks like it works, it doesn't work exactly the way it is shown now. But I will explain that further later. But just to let you know that this piston would push this piston to here, and again, racing condition, the top one won't power, the bottom one will power. One takes this, goes to here, and then when this also pulses, this would pulse the top one. So this is originally how it's supposed to work, but it's not that way. It still maintains this racing condition here, but the top one doesn't power because of some later stuff that will happen to this piston. But I will explain that later. So right now, all you need to know is that first off, racing condition. This basically makes everything non-locational. Second thing, this block doesn't work in the final door as the way as it is right now. So yeah, you can see that works. So hopefully this makes sense. And let's get on to the next part, which is this. I know it would look quite confusing, but I really have to include this whole latch circuit here right here again. I would wish to remove this latch, but I don't find any other way to better explain it without the latch. So here it is. But anyways, I will head on to the right side first. The right side would go to a dead end, but yeah, that's how I will explain. Anyways, you can see, first off, this voltage powers this lamp, and before you, oh sorry, and also the second thing, this voltage also powers this lamp. So you might think, what's happening? Why do you need this weird stuff? Let me just show you how this works first. This one is absolutely weird. I would definitely explain that later. This one is more simple. I can explain that also later, probably. And you can see that the animation itself is extremely weird, especially the opening. Yep, like this. So why does that happen? And what's the working logic behind this? There is. So it's basically the same thing again, but just with these indicators. And also I removed the input stuff. So I want you to notice these two pistons here first. Did you see that this piston fires 4 times, this piston fires 3 times? You even see that through the indicators here. This is very important. And the opening is also the same. And also you can realize that the third pulse of this is powered before the third pulse of this. This is also quite a detail, but anyways. So, what is happening? This is a lamp, right? We need to count the ticks here. So it's a 40. And if you know, a lamp turns on instantly, but turns off after 2 ticks, 2 redstone ticks. Like it has a delay before it's officially turned off. So, after 6 ticks, or I should say, okay, so let's consider the instant when this vortex is powered. So when t equals 0, tick equals 0, this powers. So t equals 6, this will depower, right? But then the dropper latch comes in. The delay for this item to go to here is 2 ticks. The comparator occupies 1 more tick, and then there's another 4 tick delay here. So 2 plus 1 plus 4 equals 7. After 6 ticks, this would turn off, but after 7 ticks, this will turn on again. What this means is that this observer would realize that it should pulse at tick 7. And it will also ignore the lamp turning on at tick 7. Why? Because the observer itself has a cooldown. So it will only realize the lamp state change at tick equals 6. So this basically creates 3 pulses. One is this vortex turns this lamp on. 2 is this vortex turns this lamp off. While this turns this lamp on again after 1 tick. This is 1 pulse, not 2. Is this vortex turns off this lamp. So that's 3 pulses. Now, how does that relate to the doubles, basically? Well, if you go back to here, it will pulse this once, and it also pulses twice and the third time, obviously. But what kicks in action is this here. So, this is related to, let me see, 6, and then, okay, anyways. So, what will happen here, you'll see this fires, and then this extends, and this retracts. So that's the way of it working. And okay, I know how to explain now. Okay, so still, we consider this when this vortex turns on as t equals 0. So t equals 6, this will turn off. T equals 7, this observer will power this block. So that's tick 7. What happens simultaneously at tick 7 is that this vortex also powers this dust and this piston. You might think they both power at tick 7, so this would be directional. No, it isn't directional. It is based on Tautic properties. Why does this work without being directional and locational? Is because repeaters have a higher Tautic priority than observers. Observers have a Tautic priority of 0, repeaters have a Tautic priority of -1. It's higher than 0, okay? So, no matter what, this piston has the absolute priority to power before this piston. This is why this powers, even though they are both powered at the same tick. This pushes, and then this piston would extend through this observer, and then this would retract, and this will also power. Via the lamp turning off, obviously. So, this is hopefully this explained. I hope you understand. So, the main takeaway is Tautic priorities and tick counting. Tautic priorities means that this piston will always fire at tick 7 rather than this piston. And then counting ticks is, well, I've counted for you already, so I hope you understand. But anyways, so now I explained this block, it's time to explain this block. So why is this block so peculiar? The animation. And then the opening. Okay, remember that this pulses 3 times, this pulses 4 times. And if I already said to you, this piston itself is the main determinant for this. So, what would happen? Okay, first off, the first pulse, this powers, right? So this powers, and then this also powers, but this is still in extended motion, so this doesn't realize that it has to power, except if you put it in updated piston, but it doesn't realize anyways. So yep, this powers. Second time, same thing happens. This powers, and this also doesn't realize, and it would definitely not realize either because this is actually retracting the block. So there's a block 36 in between. Block 36 is immovable, so this would never power. Yes, but if you remember, the second pulse is at tick 7. And let me reconfirm myself through activating this. Yes. The second pulse is at tick 7. This also powers at tick 7, mind you. This piston updates this. So this tick 7 is not a pulse. It's a constant signal from this vortex to here. So this will stay extended after tick 8 because this is an observer. It makes a 1 tick pulse. So when this turns off, remember that this won't turn off after 2 ticks when this turns off. So this has a 2 tick delay, basically 3 tick, including the observer. So what would happen at last is that, let me check myself. Yes. Okay, so you can see that tick 3, it also powers through here, and the state that this is in is literally this. While this starts to retract, there's a block 36 here, which means that this piston is unable to extend as well. Even though there's a 1 tick delay, it still isn't able to extend. So, it basically does nothing for a third pulse. And then it comes to this observer pulsing again. This will pulse and then this will pulse for the 4th time. And when this pulses the 3rd time, this will extend. And only then this would do its thing, which is to extend this and then this. So you can see this animation. Right. For the opening, things get even weirder. The first pulse from this lamp extends this. This will also do something, but it doesn't really matter. The piston isn't even here. Second pulse, this will retract. And this will be constantly powered. And I should find a better way to explain this. Let me see if I can explain this. See, so this piston, that notification is, anyways, so this piston is unable to grab this piston. And this piston would be powered by this dust to retract the block. And remember when I said that this would turn off, first this would turn off before this would pulse? The third pulse here would retract this piston. And this will also retract. Sorry, this will retract like this first. And then the third pulse here comes in, retracting this block final. And that is the working principle for the entire right side. Double. I hope this makes sense. It probably doesn't, but it's very hard to explain. At the first place, you need to know a bit of taoistic priorities. And you have to have a very clear mind of what powers first and what powers next. Especially with the influence of the redstone lamp. And this part powering might seem confusing, but you know, it just works. So, I hope this makes sense. Now, let's watch it finally. I can give you a slow-mo if you want to, but I'll probably give you right here. So, once again, I would like to say that this is a mod. This is a mod provided by Game for You. It's called Game Speed mod. So, you can go and check out in the link of the description below. So you can see in the slow motion, it does like that. And then for the opening, yes. Also keep in mind the four poles here would not extend this, because this is in block 36 state again, so this is unable to extend. So, if I missed out the 4 poles explanation. Anyways, so that's basically the full thing explained. I hope the slow motion also helps, if it does. But anyways, that's actually the hardest part of the entire door. This part took me like 4 hours, I think, at least. But anyways, moving on. It's also the right side, but a bit more simple. and also a bit more luck-based. Unfortunately, this door is also quite a bit luck-based because of how this works. I can explain it with timings, obviously, but I'm not going to because I myself don't even consider timings when I create this circuit, so I'm just going to tell you that it's based on luck. But I do have a logical explanation for this. This is more important than the actual working principle of this logic block. So, let's see this working first. You see the extreme spam of the right side already. And remember that this observer has to work. So this means that a lot of spam here would happen. And yes, you can see how the layout also affects how you wire things. And it affects the animation as well. It's quite unfortunate, but I have to do that. So one thing you need to know first is that this would power through this vortex. So this is for the bottom already. It isn't really related, but it does help with the right side. So when it opens, you can see this block gets left out. Unfortunate, right? But this would fix it, and this would fully retract. Nice. That's the first takeaway. And if I can explain to you how the flush block itself really works, the answer is luck. This poses 4 times, right? But this vortex would basically cancel out something. It probably would make a bit of sense if I slow it down again. Notice when the observer will power. It powers here. The vortex retracts now before the observer's powers. Then the 2 pulsing, and then the vortex also retracts it. This is the closing and the opening. If I can flick it, thank you. Opening, you can see that spams a bit. And then this also does 2 times. Unfortunately, the pistons at the right side would push the block, and then this piston is actually able to extend it and it retracts it. And this is why this block is left out here. Because the pistons are now unable to retract this due to timing problems. So this is why this is left for this circuit to finish its job. So, yeah, you can see how this timing also works for this. You can try to explain it yourself in timing. I'm not going to, but just to let you know it works. And I hope the slow motion also helps. Anyways, let's move on to the more important part, which is this. How does the singles work? Once again, it's timings. So it is actually still related to this vortex, but anyways. So still, let's consider this vortex when it turns on. Take equals 0. This will turn on at take equals 0. 1, 2. Powers at 2. Right. Then 2 ticks, 3 ticks. After 3 ticks, this will power 4, 5. So on the 5th tick, this will power. And then remember that at the 6th tick, this will turn off. And then at the 7th tick, this will turn back on. But that only counts as 1 pulse. So take 7, take 8. So this gets powered at tick 2. And then 2, 3. This gets powered at tick 2, at tick 5, and at tick 8. what would happen as a result? It's quite slow. I'm sorry, but I hope you can catch it from there. So let me do that again. Three pulses, and the below one does 5. Okay, so this does 3 pulses, and the below one does 5. Amazing, actually. Because if you would consider what would happen next, this turns off. After 2 ticks, this will power. After 4 ticks, this will turn off, and then after another 2 ticks, this will power. So there's a 4-tick interval between. And if you know, 4-tick interval means that even though this pulses twice, this will pulse 4 times. And basically, both pistons achieved an odd number of pulses. Nice, it works already. I hope this makes sense. So as a summary, 2 ticks, this powers. 2, 3, 5 ticks, this powers. And then 8 ticks, this powers. So 2, 5, 8 would result in this to power 5 times. This is due to piston animation logic stuff. And as this lamp and this lamp has a 4-tick interval because of this, this means that even though this pulses twice, this will pulse 4 times. This one, 3 plus 2 equals 5, and this one, 5 plus 4 equals 9. It works. Amazing. So this is how this works. Yeah. You can test it out yourself. But anyways, I'm going to move on to the next part. This explanation is going to be very long. So, after explaining the entire right part, hooray, congratulations, you've made it here. It is time to explain the top, actually. And to properly explain how this exactly works. So let me just give you a quick brief. So including this latch, and then it just transfers it pulse to here. These 3 blocks are concerned. So these will power. You can see after this retracts, this takes way longer before it can actually retract the block. And these, they just work. So the important takeaway is how this works. Let's move on to it. So ignore this latch. This latch you have seen it many times. What you cannot ignore is how this piston interacts with this piston and the resting block. This would be very important for the left side, but let's just say that, it has to be here. We don't know why yet, but it has to be here. So I want you to notice how this piston and this observer moves. You catch that? This pulses twice, retracts, extends. This piston would retract the resting block, extend this piston constantly. So even ignoring this pulse here. And then after this piston extends its resting block, this would extend. Sorry, this would retract the observer. What this means is this dropper, even though it can power through this observer to this piston, is unable to power because this observer is retracted before it's even able to detect it. So it powers this. Okay. But then we need to extend it back. So this does it. It extends back. Watch it again. See? So this basically is how I refire this piston, as I've said I would do it, which is quite amazing. This circuit is actually quite amazing. And how it would work like how it would make the piston system work. So remember that this has to pulse 2 times. Guess what? 1, 2. It does. Let me just. Okay. So how many times does this has to pulse in order to qualify for the doors to work? The answer is 3. Why 3? This retracts, extends, first pulse. This is to extend the block from here to here. And then where comes the second pulse of this? This would push, like in the actual door, this would push this piston, and then it will go to this here, and then this observer will pulse this piston instead of the top one, but I ignore it now. So this pulses 2 times, and then this will retract the piston, like in the actual door, but this observer isn't here. So what will happen? This piston would then later be pulsed by this circuit here, and then extend this observer back to here, and then pulse it for the 3rd time. So it works. And you can see in the actual. See? Now it extends. So this is how the forward double actually works. Yeah. That's the most important part for this circuit explain. Now let's explain this. So what is this? This is sort of a variation of a circuit taken from my 5x5 corner door. So the idea is, if you retract this piston, so retract this block, the observer cannot power it. So on the first time it can power. Second time it can't, because this block is right here, and the piston is not yet extended to have this block here. So what will happen? This observer pulses. So this powers 1 time. This piston powers. So this ideally gives 2 pulses. So 3 times. And then, since this observer cannot pulse through this block because the block is now here, after it's retracted, it does nothing. This still gives 2 pulses. So there's another 2 pulses. 3 plus 2 is 5. So this has a 5 pulse. This receives 5 pulses. And it's an odd number, so it works. Nice. And for the top one, what will happen to the top one? Well, it also just spams, and the timer just makes it work. I'm not going to explain in detail, but just let you know, the timing makes it work. And yeah, and guess what? That's actually the top and the right fully explained. Yay! The hard part is done. Now we can get on to the easy part, which is the left side. So, finally I can explain the triple. And just to let you know, the triple circuit itself isn't originally by me. I cannot really name the original creator, because I just don't know myself. But I do popularize this circuit, because after I actually built this 5x5 cave door, a few people based on this triple circuit and built their own doors, namely the lamp doors. Actually, they use this triple to push a block into the center and have the lamp to be powered. But anyways, I did popularize this circuit, though I don't really create the concept. But this circuit itself is very customizable, so I technically still do create the circuit, but just for the bottom part, not this part. Like this torch and then this dust. This isn't really by me, but just the concepts. Yeah, the concept itself isn't by me, but you know, I have to use when it's a good circuit. But anyways, we go beyond from the history. We go on to explain. I go on to explain how this triple works. So the triple. Okay, so before any of you would say, what is this thing? This is just to simulate the latch going to this piston, and it's a first intake pulse. I haven't explained why it is the 13 tick pulse. I should probably explain it as well through here. Why is the 13 tick pulse? Well, you can count it. So, this dropper thing has a delay of 2 ticks. Okay, 3 ticks, adding 4 ticks, which means 7 ticks. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13 ticks, if you can understand. So this is a 13 tick pulse. And this is why I also create a 13 tick gen. Why this is a piston? Input bug. I don't want to have any input bug that would affect the door otherwise. And also to give you a more realistic picture. So I use a piston instead, avoiding any input bug. I mean, if I were to absolutely avoid any input bug, I would probably not have this reading like this. But I mean, I can simply do this. No input bug. Also, this is the wrong module. Whoops. But yes, let me just fix it. Anyways, so this is a 13 tick gen. Anyways, I don't care. So this works by a very interesting thing. Concept, I should say. So this torch is going to power this, obviously. This dust in a block will power the piston here via bud. You might think, what would update it when this turns off? Obviously, the answer is this redstone torch. And the working principle is also quite simple. It's just like this. So, as you can see, the triple is extremely simple. You just need to time this piston. And okay, now I need to explain how long this pulse is. The answer is 11. I don't consider this piston extended, and I only consider this repeated actually. Why is it 11? This receives a 1 tick pulse and then retracts. That needs another tick, so 2 ticks reduced. And when this would extend this redstone block, this instantly turns off, so only 2 ticks reduced. So this is 11 ticks. So let's count the pulses. The delay again. 4, 5. This updates this dropper. 6, 7, retract. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Perfect. So yeah, this is 13 ticks of delay. And yes, it's perfect. Any more delay or any less delay would basically make it not work. And the pulse length itself is also quite essential. So yes, I don't know if this is will explain to you why the delay has to be this, but anyways, this delay works. And yes. Also, I would like to say the original circuit uses a 3 tick here, and then the observer itself is actually right here, and then the 3 ticks here. But I moved it up because of the left side stuff. I have a previous version. It also works, but the animation isn't that pretty, and it can break quite easily. So this is better. But just to do it, you know. So yeah, this is the triple circuit. And this also explains why I said before that the button input is very important, because the triple circuit actually really relies on the button input. I'm basically not able to work with this door without the button input. And this triple is very important. It's the most compact design that I can find. And that's why I have to transform it into a button input, which I did. Anyways, so move on to the next part. This. What's this? This is just to demonstrate the left part, the left side. Also explaining why this has to be a soft block. So same thing. This here, this will only create one pulse. This literally a toggle. This pulses one time. Nice, like this line block. Okay, now onto these actually. So this pulses this piston, this observer pulses this piston, and since it will pulse twice, this means it satisfies. So yes, this goes down. This is a toggle. This would pulse. This is a barrier. This pulses this. This pulses this. And yes, this also works because this is being toggled. And then finally, this toggle also directly connects to this. So this only pulses one time. This also works. And you might think, why does it work? Well, hear me out. This pulses. This also retracts actually. And after this retracts, this would pulse to here, powering through this block, powering these two pistons. And then after that, these two pistons pulse. And then this will pulse again. And that's how it works. So it's very straightforward. Even though I probably explain it in the worst possible way. Like it works and it works. But this is so straightforward. I expect you to understand. So you can see like that. Also, by the way, this also pulses the second time, but no one cares. So I'll do another slow-mo for the extension. So yes, this is the extension. So there you go. This is the entire working principle. Yeah, it's quite straightforward. So I'll move on without rambling. And now we come into this. And the button input thing isn't important anymore because we only rely on one pulse strength now. And yes, the store transforms from a lever input to a button input and then back to a lever input. Yay! So this is literally just these three blocks, and let's just show it working. Same thing as this thing, like for the double sequence. You power the bottom, and then you power this here, and then you power this, and then you power the bottom again. This is literally how it works. Okay. Anyways, so this long observer chain is just to avoid some stuff, and to fit it in into a one white space. I don't know why what this observer is doing. Anyways, these observers will power this redstone lamp, powering this. So this pulse is the first time. And this redstone lamp is basically allows this to pulse twice. Because pulsing twice is very important. The first time it has to pulse twice. Oh, sorry, the closing why it has to pulse twice is due to the circuit here. Because this will power, then this will power. And this dust will actually power this first before this. Yes. So just keep in mind. Also, this observer directly also powering these two. So, alright. The singles have been resolved. And since this will power, this will block this piston from powering. Which means that you need a second pulse here. So the second pulse enables this piston to go here. And where does the second pulse of this bottom piston come from? The answer is very simple. A latch again. But this time a latch is more based on a toggle. This powers this, retracts this, hopper powers observer line through here, and then powers this bottom here. And then also powers this, just to reset it, basically. So for the opening, it's more interesting on the opening. This powers, the bottom one powers, which will retract this to here, and also is retracting to here. This powers. And guess what? This piston cannot retract after this observer turns off because of this dust. This dust will power through this block and then extending this piston for one more tick. And when this piston reaches here, it will automatically realize that it should power because this dust is already powering this here, this piston here when this arrives at this position. So this will automatically retract this. And then the lamp is also important again because this will extend and retract and this will pulse meanwhile, and it still cannot catch this piston at its first pulse. So the second pulse catches it, so you can finally retract it. And obviously, yeah, and obviously this finishes off. So let's see it. You can see only the second pulse can catch this. So that's basically it. All you need to know is that this block is able to power through this piston, which is actually accidental. I didn't even realize it. And after I build the circuit, oh, this works. Nice, I don't even need to have a dust here. Keep in mind that this works exactly with this delay, because a piston has to retract this piston like for one tick, and after one tick this piston has to automatically realize that it will be powered by this dust. Well, actually it's 3 game ticks, but yes. So it has to realize by the time when it goes to here. So this is very important, and this is also the reason why this delay is very important. Yeah. So that's this double sorted, and then the single sorted. Right. We don't have much to explain, but we'll head on to one of the most cringiest circuit ever, which is actually the control of this piston, this clutch block. And yes, it uses this much space in order to just control this one, this single thing, because I have the space. So, the working principle itself is again very simple. So when this hopper gets powered, this observer powers, this dust powers this hopper, and then essentially extends this one. Okay. And after that, this goes through chain things. What is this doing here? I'm sorry. The actual circuitry is this. Like, I'm just seeing random observers. But anyways. This goes to here. And this is a well-known circuit already. This would extend this here, and then it would power this. Like this block. There's no block powers this. This does power this. And after that, it would go through this observer here, this hopper here, this observer here. These two observers detect, and then it would pulse these two pistons. Oh, the same thing for the opening. This pulses, nothing happens actually. And then this also pulses. This no block will power this here, this piston here, and then this does retracts this here, and then this observer line will go back to here. These two observers would power and then retract this. I probably used way too much time to explain this, so let's just see. It's quite trivial. And yep, this works. So on to the final circuit. This is only concerning this single and this double. And the final circuit is surprisingly also very easy. It's the final thing that I did, but it's one of the easiest as well. So remember that this has a toggle here. Well, this will be our inputs now, because this also a left input. But anyways, so this basically powers once, but I don't care. This goes down to here and then powers here. So not only does this block powers this piston, it also powers this one. So this creates the first pulse. And then this observer will also power this observer, which will extend this here. And then this observer takes 4 tick. This thus would push this piston here. Lamp, the observer will power this piston, extend this. And then this will retract. But since this is a lamp, this doesn't realize. So when this lamp turns off and this pulses, this doesn't realize. What should we do? We add an updater here. 2 ticks. It works. Why does it work? Because this turns off after 2 ticks. Then this will power this block at t equals 3 at the third tick. This observer would create updates at tick equals 2 and at tick equals 3 as well. So right at tick equals 3, this piston updates and it will also extend and retract. So imagine for the retraction. When this piston updates, this will retract. And that's the exact working principle for this. And also this is the reason why you can see this piston is pulsing longer than 1 tick. It's actually pulsing 1.5 tick, which is 3 gain ticks basically. That's because it has nothing to update it to turn off. It just updates itself. So it's a 1 tick. It's a 1.5 tick. So you can see. And you might ask why you need to do a lamp and an observer. This is just to prevent some locational issues. I did face them. So this is the way that I find to make it non-locational. Quite simple fix, but anyways, so yeah, this is the solution to this. And with that, that marks the end of the explanation video. It might be quite a bit longer than the usual. I actually didn't even time it. I hope this explanation video makes sense. I didn't re-script it. I hope that this makes it a bit more natural. So as always, the world download for this entire world is in the description, so you can play along with the circuits yourself. And also, this previous record will be here if you want to. Well, actually not if you want to. I will also put it here. But anyways, still, thank you for the 222 subscribers. And yeah, I hope this 2 video series would entertain you. I do personally enjoy making these as well. And I hope you also learned quite a bit of redstone, quite a bit of skills, quite a bit of planning skills, especially from this. So I hope everyone would have something new, something learned, some new concepts after watching this. But enough for me rambling. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.